Hello, this is now the third video on my website, or in this little tiny inadvertent series that I may have started. I don't intend to go too far past the third or fourth. But I wanted to continue with this idea of what happens when we conceive of a meditation practice less as a means towards some end, such as improving one's life or deeper growth, and instead we place the practice itself as the goal. And so I think it's worth considering the nature of goals, just in general. So for example, one person's goal might be to lose 30 pounds. Another person's goal might be to get a college degree, or let's say a master's degree. They already have a college degree, they want to get a master's degree, let's say. So one of the things that I think is obvious about such goals, and I think this can be said for almost any worthwhile or meaningful goal, is that we don't expect to accomplish it today. So if it's getting a master's degree, for example, we would have to look for a school, apply, get in, sign up for classes, sit in classes, listen to a bunch of lectures, take a bunch of notes if we want, or record them, do homework, pass exams, and repeat this over and over across 4 or 5 semesters. Do a lot of paperwork, like with the registrar's office and so on, and then we would finally get our goal, let's say 2 to 3 years later. If it's losing 30 pounds, we would probably change the way we eat, possibly change the way we sleep and exercise, and we would persist at this and use our willpower to make changes in our habits of living, and hopefully in many months or a year or two we've accomplished the goal of losing 30 pounds. So going back to the idea of having a goal of having a regular, daily, sustainable meditation practice. So what does that mean? So it would be nice if we started practicing today, but that's not necessarily the best way in which we would approach things. If that's our goal, if our goal is to have a sustainable daily meditation practice, we might want to set that off in the future. So for example, if you've never meditated, or you've barely meditated, or you've meditated some but you've never had anything close to daily or regular practice, you might in your mind set a goal such as, a year from now I would like to be meditating daily for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Or even 2-3 years out from now, I would like to have a daily meditation practice. Right? So we would set our goal that way. So then what one asks, so suppose that I'm such a person, I set the goal at, let's say, 1 year from now, I would like to be having a daily meditation practice of about 15-20 minutes a day. And that's what I set as my goal. So what does that mean? Does that mean for the next 365 days I can just lounge around and, I don't know, read books on meditation and, just watch YouTube videos but never meditate? No, I mean, that could be helpful or interesting, but that's not how we accomplish goals. Most goals, we don't accomplish them by sitting around watching YouTube videos and reading books on them. I mean, even though gaining knowledge can be supportive of some goals, we end up having to take a certain kind of an action that's directed toward the goal. And I would say that, so if that's the situation, that's the hypothetical situation that I'm talking about right here, an important question that one can start asking oneself is, what can I do today that would get me 1/365th of the way closer toward this goal that I want to have accomplished a year from now? What do I need to start doing today? So a year from now, I'm meditating 15 minutes every day. And in that question, if we sit with it long enough, I think we can start having answers. So one could take out a little notebook or get on one's computer and start reflecting, brainstorming some ideas. What can I do today, starting today, to get there? So I want to offer one such answer or response to that question of, what can I do today, or what can I do this week, so that what can I do this week so that I'm 1/50th or 1/52nd of the way toward this goal of meditating daily? And the concrete idea that I would suggest is this. It would be an examination of motivation or intention in our various endeavors. So in other words, you could take out a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper at the top, you could write something like projects, relationships, friendships, endeavors that I've engaged in across my life. And you just start making a list, let's say about 10 to 20 of them. So you could write about certain relationships you've been in, certain friendships, certain jobs, certain hobbies that you've had, certain sporting activities you've been involved in, anything that you've engaged in. And suppose you make a list of 20, somewhat scattered, right? So not all about relationships, not all about hobbies. Maybe in college you changed your major 2-3 times, so you have 3 different sort of incarnations as a college student. So you have, let's say you have a list of about 20 things. Then what you can do is you can ask yourself, how long did each of these engagements last? So there could be a friendship that lasted for 3 years, another romantic relationship that you thought was your soulmate that lasted for 2 weeks. And then you could have a friendship that you didn't think much of that's a lifelong friendship. Yeah. And it could be hobbies, like maybe you got into skateboarding or roller skating, or watching lots of movies and making reviews and posting them on the internet, or maybe you picked up a hobby like ceramics or painting or whatever it may be, or some kind of musical activity. And you would just sort of write down how long they've persisted. And the reason why I'm focused on this idea of persisting is the goal, again, is a year from now to have a meditation practice that persists, that sustains itself, right? So the goal is not to practice meditation every day for a year and then to drop it. Yeah, the goal isn't to practice whenever you feel like it, whether it's once a month or once every 6 years. The idea is to start a practice, sustain it every day for the rest of your life. If not, maybe it's 5 times a week for the rest of your life, or maybe it's every other day for the rest of your life, or maybe it's 3 times a day for the rest of your life. The idea is that the goal is to have a practice that sustains itself across a long, long period of time, hopefully until your death. And so I think we can gain a lot of information from our own experience through examining and evaluating in a careful manner our own experience with certain activities that we've engaged in. And if you're like most humans, you probably have a smattering, or a collection of different engagements or activities, some short-lived, some medium-lived, and some very long-lived, if not lifelong so far. And once you have all this information down, you might transfer it onto another sheet of paper and order it from least to most. So it's all in front of you. Let's say 20 things, the shortest lived all the way down to the longest lived. And then you can look at it. And then as you look, and this might take a couple days, you might spend a little bit of time each day doing this. And then as you look at it, you'll want to ask yourself, what are the common themes in those things that have lasted and persisted in my life? And what are the common themes or motivations among those activities that have been very short-lived? And I think you can gain a lot of information about yourself, about what motivates you to stick with something. And whatever that motivation is that allows you to stick with something, then the next phase will be to try to find a way to bring that into your relationship with meditation. So for example, I'm just going to give a very superficial example, but suppose that I'm someone for whom anything that involved music has lasted, but everything else just kind of goes out the window pretty fast. So let's suppose, like, even, by the way, I'm making this completely up, but suppose the only friendships and romantic relationships that have lasted are the ones where we have a shared interest in music, let's say. I mean, that would be kind of unusual, I think, but I'm using that as an example here. Then it might make sense for me to look for forms of meditation that involve music, because that music can buttress or support or encourage, almost hold together my relationship to meditation practice. And the evidence would be staring me straight in the face, because what I have down on paper is my life, how I've engaged with things. So We're not talking about things that we've dreamed about. I'm talking about things that we've actually done in our lives. Now, when you look at what are the common themes in particular, I would suggest that you look at your motivations or your intentions underlying these engagements. Yeah? So, for example, in a romantic sense, we can meet somebody and think, oh my God, they're our soulmate, blah, blah, blah. Usually that's a bad sign, I would say. But if we look underneath that experience of thinking the person's a soulmate, what's the motivation underneath it? The motivation we might call self-fulfillment. It fulfills some idea that we have in our mind of what it means to meet somebody. Therefore, it clicks and we think this is a soulmate. It conforms to all our a priori conceptions of a relationship. So then how does that work out for you? How does that work out for each person who's listening to this? My guess is those things don't work out. Self-fulfillment, I find, is not a sustainable or sustaining motivation for almost anything that I can think about in my own experience. But maybe it will be for you. So that's the exercise. Now, I happen to know two themes that for me are key in almost everything that has persisted or sustained in my life. I may make a video on that, or I may not. So if you don't see a video on that, it means that I never did. Now, when I say what I know for myself, I also believe that this is true for just about everybody. I believe that there's a kind of a universal principle to two particular motivations that are important in order to support a sustaining activity. And some activities, we can't just insert these two motivations. So for example, let's say I get on a kick of like hurting people. Like I just start, I don't know, I want to be a comedian where I just attack people and make fun of them. There's no way I can bring in certain motivations to an action like that. So not all activities can be imbued with certain motivations that are sustaining. But there are two in particular that are important. If you're very interested in what these two are, you're welcome to email me or contact me through this page. And if you ask me, I'll tell you what those two are. If I happen to get 10 requests, how about this? If I happen to get 10 requests, I'll make a video. And that might take like 10 years to get there at the rate my website visitors are going. But here I've stated it. If you've read my book on contemplative meditation, you can probably guess what those two motivations are. Anyways, I'll stop there. I hope that the exercise that I've presented gives you some hope of something that you could do to begin to set yourself up to accomplish this goal of a daily meditation practice. I originally was just going to put one video to stick on the website so people could get a sense of me in video instead of just words or photos. And here I've made this third video, and they're getting longer probably. But I may make another one, I may not. If there's another one, it'll be lower on this page or on some other page. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I hope that's given you some food for thought. I've said that at the end of the first 3 videos. Some of you know that I wrote a book called Eat These Things. I should have kept it as Eat These Things, and then I could wrap up all these videos with, I hope that gives you some food for thought. Anyways, I thought that was kind of amusing. All right, thank you for listening. Hope you have a good day.